I can think of, well, there's the history strand. Is there something that we have in history that deals with that? I think we're kind of like talked about in history. We had, there's that one bleed in history that we do as several groups. Yeah, I'm trying to see if we have it in history. I really don't see it. Let's see. Examine culture. Okay, there was one that we read it out that was examine cultural interactions among these groups from colonial times to Civil War, Native Americans, immigrants, European Americans. Can you read that somewhere?
We said we'd catch that in the...
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Which one, where was it?
It was in F. History. It's in the history strand F in grade 5.
Yeah.
Now, did we move it somewhere? I don't see it, because that would be one that I think would be valuable to keep in the elementary grades. But I don't see that we moved it someplace else in Missouri history.
I'm with you. I think we need it though. I don't know why we would.
Yeah, we don't have it anyplace else.
We moved over the 4th grade to 3rd grade in F. But we didn't move that one.
Interesting. In one of the new ones that we added in history, A, grade 2, is compare the culture of people in our community across multiple periods of time. Or multiple time periods. Which is very similar to what we just put in yesterday as a whole strand across. Yeah,
The only concepts we have are cultural characteristics of people
And that one we finished last night. The late one.
but what concept is that? Oh, ideas of religion, different cultures?
Right.
So I think we need another concept.
Yeah, so the one right underneath that right is changing of roles of various groups.
I'm gonna steal this one.
I think that one that was in history. Like I said, I think it would be very important for elementary children, and maybe not throughout the whole grade thing, K-5, but so at least we have the opportunity to learn about how various groups have changed, their roles in society changed. And it makes kind of sense when you think of historical periods, and it's not in our history area right now.
Okay, here's the one.
I think it needs to be somewhere.
Here's what we've had up in history. Get off of red. Where'd you go from that? No. Okay. Explain the American Revolution, including the perspective.
Oh, the wrong one.
Okay.
Undo.
Sorry. Grab the wrong one.
You know, just a small swath of history.
Notice among these groups.
Yeah, the wording in,
Like that seems like it's intra-group.
yeah, the wording right that's there is gonna have to be changed, because that came from a different thing. I think it's.
So I'm trying to figure out who are they actually interacting
Yeah.
with? Are they interacting with other Native American groups, or is it Europeans and Native Americans?
Yeah, that wording doesn't work because it came from a different concept.
I think in between is what they're aiming about.
Yeah, they meant between the different groups. And I would be more in favor of something that would, you know, examine the role of, and then list, you know, the changing role of so-and-so across a certain time period.
I like how they have it from colonial times to Civil War. So change that to the fourth grade time with the same language to Civil War. I
No,
think it's.
no.
No, we're not serious.
Land bridge to the Constitution.
Okay.
Right.
I think if we give them a time frame, give them a couple examples, and tell them what we want them to do.
I wouldn't necessarily put land bridge just because of the land bridge theory.
I'd say two.
You might want to just say from early migrations, early explorations, the first explorations.
Yeah. Migration.
Early migration.
That's what I said. I don't know if that's what you want.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
But just as long as there's a boundary on it.
Yeah. And then, how about just leaving the same groups in both categories? It might want to add women.
Do you need to have immigrants from Europe?
I would just.
I would too.
So you want to add women?
I would like to see some history of women taught. We do it often.
That needs to be shown in the chipmunk.
That's like from the Hubbard.
There you go.
Like, no, I had extra tails. I think it's very self-describing.
Oh, I see now, I see now.
I'm looking at that women, how can you,
As a cultural
is
group.
that culture? Yeah.
Is it safe
And I agree that we need to.
Well, if immigrants are immigrants,
But in that are many
do we need Africans brought to America or just African Americans?
Yeah.
No, because
First period, it's
the
everything.
immigrants are people that came here willingly. The Africans that were brought to America is a completely different segment.
And so is the segment of African Americans in their own culture.
Yeah, but they would be immigrants, wouldn't they? They would fall under the immigrants if they came here willingly, is my thought.
I think in the fourth grade, it's appropriate, but like Craig's doing right now, in the fifth grade, given the time period, up to.
Except for from colonial times until Civil War, you still would have.
Right,
Yeah.
you would have got
True. Although the British shut it down. Whatever my history.
Yeah, they did. They went before us, but this is.
No, but they shut down also just the importation of Africa slaves, essentially, and that happened in.
No, I'm looking at something else, sorry. I was looking at cultural ethnic groups.
1947 was the Slave Trade Act, where the British then forcibly decided to stop any sort of slave trade because they controlled the sea. They pretty much shut it down. And that's when, in the United States, we stopped importing slaves shortly thereafter. Because we couldn't.
Right.
Could we put, and other groups, or something like that, instead of trying to say every cultural group we wanted to do and leave some discretion to the teacher? Name a few that we think are important, that really should be touched on, and others.
Because we just give examples, then we're just gonna pick from whatever's up there.
Yeah.
If you get some that are mandatory, and then others. I have an 8 or smaller than the other. I don't know. This is
I think cultural wise.
Weekend days.
or gets that different.
Yeah. Is that better?
So back to the question of, is women, should that be considered a cultural group? Ladies?
This is not how you define cultural group.
Well, actually, if you look at the concept, it's changing role of various groups.
Right.
So then we're okay.
Then let's take
Yeah.
cultural out of it.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I take the word cultural out of it too, maybe.
Do we want to look at the interactions among the groups, or do we want to do what the concept says? Yeah.
Their role.
Don't we want to examine the roles, or just the roles?
Do we look, would it be easier if you look at, say, with the women group, would it be easier to say, put it with just fifth grade, because then you've got women's suffrage, Susan B. Anthony, some of those things that would become during that time frame. Or do you look at, I think there's ways you could look at
I
just
think
different
leave them both.
gender roles in both, but you know,
Yeah.
there's just different expectations of both, but you know, I know it would be in the
It's much
second
more
time
salient
frame,
in the-
where it's easier to discuss some of those things.
So Abigail Adams disagreed. Martha Washington.
Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross.
No,
That's
give her no credit.
No, she-
No. She isn't this.
Dolly Madison, she did something
Yeah.
good.
Rolled eggs, didn't she?
Yeah, make those hyperlinks.
Go to something else.
Yeah.
And that's a heck of a start.
Yeah, it is. It's also a nice example of a better way. Greg, what you doing, buddy?
I'm just looking.
You're staring? Okay, so I think we're in or we were saying that maybe we should change the first part, instead of examining interactions among the groups, to examine the roles of these groups.
There's not just the roles that change it.
Well,
Examine how
that
roles
changes
changed.
because of the periods,
Okay.
right? The memory is changed, otherwise we're repeating everything.
Right.
The concept. Oh.
I thought you had concept title to fit in
Okay, so that fits history, the historical time period. Do we need anything prior to that or no? Is that really
I think in the
Do
lower
we-
grades, they're just learning how those groups function. And I think once they get older, it's going to be easier for them to understand the changes and the bigger picture. So I'm afraid if we push it down too much further, it's not going to be something they can grasp.
Yeah, this actually helps to round out the historical teaching of history. It gives the teachers a point to say, oh yeah, we gotta remember we gotta use the history of multiple peoples.
So I think my only question would be, do we need to include anything about early immigrants to Missouri?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
No, that's okay, I just don't put it
Because
in.
now in history, did we keep that about like settlement? There was a history that was about settlement patterns.
Yes.
Did we keep that?
Outline issues in Missouri statehood, sequence and describe the importance of these events, summarize the events in westward expansion, including people's motivation or hardships in Missouri as a jumping off point to the west.
So we didn't keep any of the culture stuff.
Let me see.
What would it have been, you know? I don't see anything that we crossed out that would have been culture. Besides that one we just took care of.
Well, maybe it's in economics. I know there's a belief that's about settlement patterns.
Right.
Remember that? Let's see if it's in economics
Maybe it's geography.
or geography. I'll check economics and check geography.
There's settlement patterns
So many
in
things that the concept of where ideas and beliefs and cultures. And I
in
think-
geography we have identifying the tradition, virtues, and characteristics, and that includes settlement patterns.
Sub that down and talk about preservation of traditions. It didn't sink in, so I apologize.
Oh, I see it,
think we
yeah.
don't need perfect.
Because I didn't see it till the
Yep,
end.
there it is. It's
I
still
can
in
say
there.
I'm wrong, I think I
Right.
get it now.
Okay.
You ever,
That's good
you ever
to know.
presented something
Yes.
the first
Yeah,
time, you're just like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
and then you're like, oh, yeah, maybe it does work. That's why I'm like, if you put it in a list in front of me, I can finish this in a picture. If you just tell me, I'm like, yeah.
So in
No,
geography,
I think that's good.
in 8th grade geography on H, we took out human systems, but in 8th grade is where they had impact of those patterns on cultures and community life.
I think maybe it's worthwhile having it in Missouri level.
I think so too.
Just
Changing the
something
rules?
similar. Yeah. For Missouri.
And that's secondary.
Yep. There's one more down.
When we talk about Missouri and historical, are we doing historical time frames with Missouri, or do we look at it as everything from the beginning of Missouri, from 1803 up to now? What is
From the
the
fall of man till now.
In 9 weeks.
I guess that's what I'm kind of curious. Do we? With all
Mainly
those
we have westward kind of expansion.
In the history.
Dred Scott.
We've got that. Western expansion.
Sure, we did that on day one. I think you were here when we actually did that.
Which one? Dred Scott and stuff. Yeah, I'm sure we did. I'm trying to. I can't.
I remember talking.
Okay, explain the causes and consequences of the Dred Scott decision on the nation. That's in grade 3.
You know, you're right though.
Under political developments.
As I look at the glees that we left in Missouri history, it's all early. None of it's contemporary. I think the latest it goes is westward expansion.
traditionally what we've done in
Right.
fourth grade.
It wouldn't be bad though here to expand it out.
Under cultures.
Because we're not constrained by historical period here, and it's really important for people to understand that cultures are changing.
I tried to get something about how Missouri was inclusive of all the presidents yesterday, but
Still up there, has been marked off.
So how about cut and paste what we've got, except make it for Missouri?
Part of what I'm asking about.
How about cut and paste what we got, make it for the state of Missouri?
yeah.
And eliminate the time period? And that gives local districts the opportunity to decide what time period they want to found it, or if they want to carry it forward to current day.
Do we know? Do you have any idea, is there there may not be, but any sort of a cycle for this, like when do they go back to reading? Like when will they look at this again, anybody know?
When do they teach American history again?
No, like when will they look at our thing, like the ones we're creating, is there a cycle? Like I know, in our district, we have a 6-year curriculum cycle. So every 6 years, they relook at and redo everything, so the curriculum cycle, but will these be relooked at?
When's the next election?
When was the last?
When's the next election?
Oh, yeah, that's
This is just
what I said. But I guess that's what I'm kind of curious about.
So you're wondering if this is even gonna.
No, I'm actually wondering if we go all the way up through, you know, like now if we were to talk about, I think when these were first created, I'll bet even if 9/11 had just happened, they wouldn't have talked about it right away because it still would have been so new and trying to figure some things out. And so I'm wondering, something like that may still be not a topic where everybody's comfortable talking about, like Michael Brown, if we're talking about Ferguson and some of those things. I think Ferguson is going to eventually be our song. And I think that's going to be a more traditional, similar thing. It may not be something that people would want to put in the standard right now, but 6 years from now.
When's the last time they looked at these? It was on that first.
Well, I mean, I think they did look at it just a couple of years ago. And it was adopted, and that was
They
their
didn't,
learning standard,
right.
right, we're adopting it now, whether it makes sense, a different issue, but.
2003.
When they were written.
10 years. So Craig, you shortened the number of groups?
Yeah, you weren't gonna put groups on there, right?
No, I would still list some groups.
Oh, okay, I thought you said don't put any groups.
I wouldn't limit the time period.
Well, I took the time period off.
Yeah.
I was thinking you said remove the groups, and I
Was not, this was not.
thought for sure we need to do Native Americans and early immigrants.
Now we put African Americans.
At the state level?
Yes.
Okay. Women at the state level? I'm just asking. I'm trying to see this as a third grade teacher, see if I'm teaching state
Right.
level.
Well, look at the people we list of significance in that they're supposed to study in Missouri, and you're going to see all of those groups represented.
Okay, then I'm good with it.
Did we list them?
I'd like a resource.
Yeah, we did.
I know there were women. I'm not sure there's
Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Not really.
Well, then.
Right.
Make sure.
Mary Easton
Add the
Sibley.
information. Mary,
Yeah, we have a huge list.
But we didn't list
No Native American.
Native American in there. No Native American.
And I don't personally know that typically taught as famous Missourians. I know other places, but not talking about groups.
Groups?
Right.
Yeah.
So how did that group change within the state?
Yes. Basically, they were all pushed out.
Right.
Or they traveled through.
Right.
Or they were able to settle in some cases, but lose their group identity.
Right. The dead white guys mistreated them.
I think it is important.
Just-
There's just not a lot of depth there.
Not forget why you got to do an awful lot.
If we don't teach them, I'd rather see that.
I like Jimmy Hardwick.
It is, I think it is an industry thing.
Are we good with L?
I think so. I'm about to yell it.
Include other groups there, so.
Well, as immigrants, the French.
That's what I was saying, French and Spanish too. But, you know, other groups are there, so some will include that. If the-
I think if you leave it in fourth, that gives them something to build on.
Yeah.
So that in fifth, or in fifth, leave it in third, you just have to build on in fourth, so it's totally not any conflict. And they might not go as in depth. They don't have a certain time period to work with, but they'll just have a basic understanding of those groups.
And just depleting immigrants allows us across the whole time span of Missouri to talk about immigrants in the past, waves of immigration, immigrants in certain locales. Some parts of the state hasn't experienced a lot of immigrants. Yep. And do we want to talk about some of the migration of peoples within the United States that happen here? In that affect Missouri, you know, Little Dixie area and
We have geography, we talk about migration.
But
yeah.
I think we are specific in the third grade.
Yeah,
Under geography.
I guess I'm okay with this way it is.
We talk about migration of Native American pre-group and settlement in grade 4. In grade 3, we call that outline the exploration and early settlement of Missouri. So we don't list migration. We changed the concept from understand the migration of people to understand the movement of people. And we combine like two different pieces to make it one thing.
I'm okay with it. Anyone else?
I'd like to know what we mean by roles. I'm just trying to figure out what we're actually asking.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Right.
That's not as important to you as it is to me.
That's why it's bad at work.
Because I keep thinking we're actually, when we're discussing, I feel like we're talking about interactions between the groups, but I'm not sure that's what that says. I don't know what they mean by roles.
Yeah, so the way it's written now, the way I think about it is not between the groups, it's where do they fit in society? How do they fit within society? What positions do these different groups have in society?
So do we need to add that to the concept in society?
Right. Do we need to put within society?
Changing of roles in various groups.
I'm just
Like
trying
that?
to figure out. I think that makes more sense to me. I was just trying to figure out.
Because the previous one was this interaction among the groups.
Right.
I think here we're shooting for something different, which is, the position and the things that these groups have been able to do within society has changed over time. So if we were to look at Missouri and Native Americans, the one that we struggled the most with, well, they were the only people here early on into the settlement and ultimately they were pushed out. So at one point, they were very, very important to the trappers and traders and, on their own, and then the trappers and traders, and then eventually pushed out.
So how does that work for immigrants?
Immigrants.
Because once they've immigrated, are they no longer? I mean, does that change, or is there? I guess there's different roles. They could just be a different.
Yeah, because at first they were pushed out. At first they weren't welcome. Then they became welcome. Then they settled. Then they said that no, we're not immigrants anymore. So their role really changed, and then they were pushing out other immigrants. So within the history of, so people now who, might be opposed to new immigrants were at one point immigrants themselves. And certainly their role in Missouri history has changed.
Changing roles in that. What do you do over there?
That's the concept.
Yeah.
Well, rarely in this case, looking at it over time, we put changes in roles of various groups over time.
Well, you've got that within the time frame within there, because you
Yeah,
list the
yeah.
time frame. I think I'm good the way it is.
I think we need to have like somebody who's not a part of the discussion that we just call in every once in a while to read it.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think you're
You know what I'm saying? What do you
I
think?
mean, I don't know about you guys, but what I would love to do by the time we're finished with this is all of us take it to people who are in districts and parent groups and say, take a look at this. What does this mean to you? What do you think? Do some small focus groups and to get feedback.
I'm gonna be honest, because if I just read that in isolation, I really don't think I'm gonna get what we just talked about out of that.
Really?
Examine roles among varied groups. I don't know. Examine the roles among the group within Missouri history. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, and that's why I said earlier, the word change almost needs to be in there, because what you're doing is you're looking at how their group has changed. And I know you have the time frames on the older one, but you don't on the Missouri one.
I could examine the changing roles of these groups throughout Missouri history.
Examine how the roles of these groups changed. I don't know if I like the word change at the beginning, because you're telling me what to do, but then I'm not there to what I'm doing with.
I would also take out the word among. That's part of what I'm having struggle with too. I'm not sure when they say among the group, I feel like that means within
Each
the
group,
group.
each other's.
Is it how we changed Missouri, or is it how they changed for themselves?
Right, or just even how they roll with within
With
Missouri
each
history
other.
has changed.
That the among to me implies
societal roles of various groups throughout Missouri history and how they change. Because somewhere we're talking about society. It says society in the first, but then we take it out. Do we need to have that in there?
Then why not, as a concept, put the changing societal roles of these groups? And when you break it down across, it might be easier. And take what you just said, as the big overlaying concept, then that's the concept.
I like the idea.
Examine the systems.
I'll let you guys listen. Kathy, let's figure out.
I give you the input of various groups.
Okay.
I'm joking.
Throughout, well, it's just throughout history.
Examine the societal status changes within these groups. Gotcha. I like the societal roles and status of these very groups.
Throughout history.
Well, you've got throughout history here.
And what would be throughout Missouri history and then throughout U.S. history? So it may even change. I mean,
I like it.
if you really want to take it even farther back, I mean, I don't know how far back, but I don't know if there's changing roles. If there are changing roles of family dynamic are getting bigger, but I think I'd leave it where it is, third, fourth, or fifth, but you could get into two work, both parents not working versus.
Literally not hard. Well, why not just examine the societal changes within these groups?
And the staff.
Why did you say one status? If it changes, then. Status, place. I don't know. To me, I think it kind of forces my own.
Yes. It doesn't tell you what they do.
Yeah, it kind of limits it to the value.
I think,
Unless that's what you're going.
I think there's somewhere in what she's saying is that role of privilege.
But it's also what you do. Role implies what you do.
Yeah. I agree
Status
with you.
doesn't.
I agree with you.
That's the.
So you've got both. There's a and.
Right, but your status would affect what you can and can't do.
So does your role.
Yeah, I don't think you need status because the role implies that. If my role becomes a legislator, then that gives me status. If my role is a slave, it tells me my status.
But how do we want that status? We have status of this certain.
You get the money class, it doesn't tell me what I do. Like we have the money class, lieutenant, slave owner,
So why not leave them both?
changes that, but, okay.
But we're okay with that.
Yeah.
The whole document.
The whole, yeah,
I know.
the whole wordsmithing thing just
Right.
it exhausts me.
Do
I'm an
we-
English teacher.
Do we want throughout history in there?
I understand what you're saying. That rules imply status. Status doesn't imply role.
I don't have to have it for me.
Do we want throughout
Put
history
it,
or not?
we put it in those three.
Changing implies some sort of change. That's all in a period of time. I'll do it.
And I guess if you're saying that, you teach them the role.
I'm kind of doing wordsmithing, except for I think that most of the people that see this aren't going to be privy to our conversations. I think it's important that whatever our intent is got to be fairly clear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine to let everybody do it. I know we're gonna go through this again multiple times.
Well, kind of way of saying I know I'll have an opportunity later.
Yeah, very much. That we'll have, we're gonna have this discussion again.
Oh, come on.
Is it okay? Yes.
That's okay. That's right.
Edit later.
Yeah,
Which is it?
don't you think we'll be doing this or that?
You used this yesterday? Now you're using that?
No.
Okay.
Like you both said.
For some reason it's just
Take it back.
inconcurrent.
Yeah, that's what I would like to do.
Look at it.
Yeah.
Give them a bone up copy on like an 11 by 9 paper.
Absolutely.
Edit, share it, annotate, do your deal.
Yeah.
Ask questions on the board and bring back to us.
Okay, so we were thinking about, so now we have 3.
Kathy has a brilliant idea for.
Okay.
Hey.
Kathy, can you share your
Three
voting
minutes for
idea?
K.
H-I-J-K?
Oh, we were talking about that, so that preservation is an idea about culture that we could make it something with this.
Like a sub-K, like the next line, you can talk just about the preservation. The next sentence,
One
I
of
guess.
these?
Yeah.
So as a part of K, just make it item B.
I think it makes sense now.
K continued.
Well, just the cell below it, see how that's blank? That's where we.
Oh yeah, 'cause I did this yesterday. That's where I was gonna write it in. Very good.
I couldn't see it. Couldn't see mine.
Here, I kind of wrestled with this last night, probably the whole idea of study versus celebration versus, those kinds of things. But to me, part of preservation is experiencing traditions or customs and those kinds of things, or really, or children or adults, part of, when I go to a living history museum, or like when I go to Silver Dollar City and I make a road with my kids, that is part of preserving a history of how things are made over time. So I really wrestled with the verbs here, I guess.
Is that cultural heritage?
That could be a question.
I'm talking about instead of being cultural preservation.
Yeah.
Is it type of cultural heritage, right? Preserve. Because this says cultural heritage is the legacy of physical artifacts and extended relations to the greater society that are inherited from past, maintained in the present, and bestowed to future generations. And when I think cultural preservation, I think museums and stuff like that. And then I think cultural heritage, I think more like,
Art.
yeah.
I guess we just put creative in the artifact.
And that's, yeah, I got that part.
Did we do?
So we did do that, but does that really,
I'm just not clear, at this point, I'm not clear what the concept is. Let's go to the page.
ideas and beliefs is difficult.
There's a culture, and they have some ideas and some beliefs. That I get.
They pass them along.
Okay.
That's something different.
So that's the preservation.
That's why I mean, I think it's a different concept.
Okay. What do you want the concept to say?
It's not my concept.
But it is,
I'm
but it is
reading.
an idea.
If
It is
it's
an
not,
idea.
if no one else thinks it's important, then it shouldn't be there.
I don't know what it is, so please find out what it is.
I believe in what you're saying. Just trying to think of how that would fit.
I am, is there a downside to just making it its own concept?
I think it should be its own concept. If
How would it
it's
look?
gonna be, but I
I
don't know.
mean, you
what
could
it
take
is.
it all the way across, from photo albums, scrapbook albums, how do your family take that's important memories?
And tools of social science.
Separate.
So maybe. we
Right, but
make
that, I mean, I'm
that-
not giving the answer, what I'm asking is how does your family preserve some of its important memories? What are the different ways that your family may talk about it? How do you, as a kid, do you keep certain items that are important to you to remember? I mean, so I think you can talk about that at all the different levels. And then you can go all the way up to the Smithsonian's and the Library of Congress
And it can be, I mean, the American Heart System.
Right.
I mean, that's all a part of our preservation.
I think this is, I think it's something that you can, it goes pretty easily across lots of different strands. got rid of J, what if we just put it there where J is?
So would it lead be something like this, Kathy? Identify how your family maintains its cultures and traditions. Is that what you're looking for?
I was going to put family, maybe. Well, I guess in the one grade.
Well,
Kindergarten.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to come up with a belief. I'm trying to come up with a belief. Identify or, relate how your family maintains its culture and traditions. And then that would be at the family level. Is that what you're thinking? That's what I was
Same thing for
hearing.
communities, you could do it,
And then maybe the concept is something as simple as preservation of culture and traditions.
And to me, that is an idea of a culture, is how you preserve something, because all the cultures are different. But if it's enough to be strands standalone, or a concept, to make it its own concept. I don't think there's enough in social science inquiry to support that, though.
Because when we get to Missouri, and we're talking about different cultural groups, we say, well, how do those cultural groups still maintain their identity? So the Native Americans who've been pushed out, how do they maintain? Well, some are trying to reclaim their tribal status. Some have established the misfortunately named Redmond posts, etc., things like that.
I think.
Is that what you're thinking of?
Yes, and at the same time, I guess one of my concerns as standards come and go is that people's interpretation of rigor becomes less hands-on in some ways, unless it's science. That science can be hands-on in that lab experiments. In social studies, become art, stats, reading, and writing. Whereas I think the experience of having real clay in your hands and creating a pinch pot or a foil pot is very different than reading about it. And to me, part of preserving culture are having those experiences where you understand the aesthetic value of things and the participation in it. Not that it becomes part of your culture by any means, but that, I don't know, that's the part of it, I guess, that really concerns me, as I see the interpretation of standards become, those things are out of the curriculum. And to me, I feel like kids miss out on learning this stuff. That may be unique to the area.
So when I hear you say that, I hear you conflating the social science inquiry standard with this other concept. Because the social science inquiry, that's where we say you shouldn't just be reading from a textbook. You should be engaged in a variety of inquiry skills. Everything from primary documents to using artifacts, creating artifacts, researching. So that's what I'm hearing when you say that part. But that's covered actually in the social science inquiry. And that's very different from this idea that culture have to be preserved in some way for them to continue. Otherwise they disappear. Languages are disappearing every day around the world because no one's being care. People are dying off, no one's being care. Cultures are disappearing and emerging, mixing, changing. So I hear two different things. I hear you talking about two different things. And one I think we've gotten taken care of in the social science inquiry. The other one though is, do we want to have a concept about, maintaining culture or something like that, preservation of culture, cultural heritage.
Is it about preserving it or studying about how cultures do it? You know what I'm saying? Are you talking about changing
That
it,
experience is truly about
or how groups keep it as they are studying? Or are you trying?
If I'm writing in a journal, I'm creating an artifact. And so it's very much well set. Check off, we've done that. And I don't think that was the intent. I think that was
But that's a local interpretation.
You're right, that's not, it's probably a local.
That's a local interpretation. And then if they're good enough, someone's invested enough to say, that's really not good enough. That to really experience this, they need to do something else. They need to have a colonial days But I think the other idea is a really important idea, that cultures go away unless you take care of them. Traditions go away unless you take care of them. Heritage disappears unless you take care of it. And I think that's a really important idea. I wasn't really sold on it until you really talked about this one.
Honestly.
And then I started thinking about it. Would,
What happened?
and the national anthem wasn't sang before baseball games, before World War II. So, I think it's a.
Because there was a discussion about we've lost something, how do we preserve it? So or is there a responsibility of public education to intentionally have that discussion?
So I guess I would say, before I go on, that I'm on board with the idea of having a concept about preserving cultural heritage and traditions, and that we would flesh that out on how that can be done at different levels. In terms of what does your family do, what does your community do, what do we do in a state, those sorts of things.
And I don't think there seems to be the how, and like you said earlier about the community, maybe there is a need to use one of the to make it something other than just cultural.
Describe an experience how military is preserved in families.
Well, that keeps it.
I am, I heard on.
I think it's also just a discussion about like historical sources. If you're looking at primary and secondary sources, like how are those maintained so people can go back and learn from them?
We were very intentional about putting this into the inquiry stream. And we kept saying, we've got to figure out how to make sure these things are right. I think that's just a great way to find that place, to help find that place.
So it could be something like explain how you and your family remember important events. Where
Explain how you and some family remember and commemorate.
Maintain, whatever.
I think you could even just use that same language almost and just take out family and just apply it all the way across.
And,
And they're just telling us. Yeah, I like describing experience or explaining, right, how, the explain is just, you know what that's
Right.
gonna turn on us.
A conversation.
Oh, you think?
Can we say describe an experience? How does that look in the classroom?
I'm looking for a verb right now.
Well, I think right now,
I think you
so on the
mean
phone
AM,
last
right?
night with
Not
Ishbel, she's
Describe
reading
and
No, she's saying two verbs, describe and experience, right?
If you just.
like this weekend, we're making
Right.
a rose petal tart from the medieval time period.
Yeah, but not about your family.
No, I'm just,
That's what
so
I'm
what
saying.
does experience mean? That's what it's saying, to me, that's part of.
No, but Patrick was pointing out that right now in kindergarten, we're gonna say,
I know.
describe and experience what your family does
What we're
in
trying
the
to do
classroom.
is get
Yeah.
it to be more than just say, we do this. Yeah, I think that.
Maybe it's
No, I'm
describe
looking for a word.
and experience how families remember and are, is it just family? Describe and, looking for words, describe and.
Looking for words to make it any way. I know they need to work on.
I think we're gonna have to take out and experience, I guess it's gonna be
Yeah.
describe. I think this is going, it's either gonna have me on, so yeah, we may not want it to be a conversation or something they can do, but I think that's what this is going to have to be, because they're gonna be retelling what their families do.
They could draw pictures, they could
No,
bring in
I mean,
photographs, they
I'm
could,
branching out.
you know. So if you say describe, it doesn't have to be just talking. They can bring in
Right.
photographs, they can create an album, they could, you know, draw pictures. So on the concept, are we on board with preservation of cultural traditions, heritage?
Cultural preservation and heritage.
Something like that.
Preservation, probably in that order. Cultural heritage and preservation.
Heritage and preservation.
It's two different things. I mean, preserving it is different than having fun, I think. Can we just have them there for just a second?
Where?
Can I just, what do we have for A one more time?
Okay.
Just to clarify.
1 second.
Half the screen's over here, I can't.
There it is. There's A.
Describe cultural characteristics of class members.
Okay.
So the actual people, not the events.
Properly. No, why it's doing that.
Look at that.
I'm
I
typing
don't
it
have
once,
my, I have my, I can't get the scroll bar.
Trying to be taken down by European corporations. Do you not like it big screen?
No, I just can't figure it. I see how half of it.
Hey
So-
Kathy, what did you say on this one? What y'all end up with that?
Because right now that reads pretty much like the one right above it.
Yeah, that's what I was and then I was looking at the bug to see, oh, okay, how
So-
is this unique?
If this is about preservation, it should be
Oh, I
something.
think it is different.
Huh?
I do think it's different.
So
The
it would
family
change-
lore part, I think that the way you do family traditions is different than how you commemorate special events.
Yeah, that's a pretty fine line.
I think that how you
For
celebrate a
kindergartners.
particular holiday is different than the way your family, like every Christmas, we go and cut down a Christmas tree. That's a family tradition. That may not be a way I commemorate my kid.
May not be, but it could be.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, it's
Right,
a pretty
it
fine line.
could
If it's
be,
not
but-
discrete, then you're basically merging.
Right, but what I'm saying, I would say no, because these are, you could have the top one without ever talking about the bottom one. You could have the bottom one without ever talking about the top one. You could do both.
But you could do both.
Right, so if you remove one of them, then you may end up without it.
They could work in tandem together,
Right.
or they could work apart from each other.
Right, but if you take one out and don't put one in there, then you're running the risk of losing it altogether. How do you talk about family traditions without ever talking about how you actually commemorate things? When I see the bottom one, I think of, when you're talking about preserving, I think of the things that we choose to put in our kids' special boxes, you know?
Right.
That to me is different than how we celebrate Christmas or the things that we may do as a family. You know, in our scrapbook things or in our box, there may be a picture of us cutting down a Christmas tree, but those are two different things.
Right, no, I hear you, and I agree with you. I'm not sure that wording though makes it
Leads us to
distinctive.
that.
Yeah, makes it
I see
distinctive.
what you're saying.
I mean, not that I think we should make better all the time, but if you were going to put that kind of experience as a standard, regardless of whether it was, what it was, regardless of what culture, regardless of, if you were going to describe, would that be a simulation, simulate? Would it be, participate? Would it be, or would it just be,
You know
You're
exactly.
late.
You're
behind.
You're real. You're
Not
real.
up with the group.
Oh my goodness. Your real death is
Your
fixed.
status,
Delayed.
your status has changed. Your role.
I didn't know you had her computer at first.
No, morbid. No, morbid. I wish it was morbid and absolute. No, your spinning wheel of death just kept going.
Could it be just simplifying the language a little bit, like describe how you and your family maintain the cultural heritage and traditions?
Describe how community.
And then if-
Describe how
Right.
state. We have a state there over
That's the
there.
word. That would just describe how you and your family.
Describe how y'all.
I think that right there looks
Yes.
like.
Yes.
Isn't that what you just said?
Yeah, so I think that looks good just like that, but.
Isn't that what you just said?
Well, it's a little bit different because this is about special events. It's not about culture. So I was saying cultural heritage and traditions. Because what I envision, so let me help tell you, let me share with you how I
Okay.
envision. It's not just an event, it's about my culture, my family's culture. So it's not about something that happens necessarily. It's about something that happens that reflects my culture.
Well, like in our family, like part of our family culture is all kids support each other in sports and music. And so you will be at your sister's band concert, even if you don't want to be. That is part of our, but that is part of our family culture. That is part of the expectations
Right.
of daily living in our family.
Right.
Recently, I screwed that up. That has always been ours, but recently it's not.
Yeah, and then if you want to identify your family culture as an ethnic culture, so you might say, such as my wife's family is Italian American, they have
But I don't-
spaghetti.
but I don't wanna-
I think
at-
recipes we
Right,
Right.
but I think those are
Some
things
speak a
kids
language
could put in there, but I don't know if it just has to be just the things. Don't the things that we consider special therefore help make up our culture?
No, well, no, it doesn't. Not in the way we've talked about culture throughout this.
So I'm wondering, I don't know. Because I do
Not
think
the way
there's
we talked
something,
about culture the
I
whole
think
way,
there's
yeah.
something that if your family says, if it, I'm thinking from a kindergarten, some of the things they're gonna pick is the trophy I got from my sports thing. That's something that's special to me, so I choose to remember that. Is it necessarily a bigger piece
Is
about
that cultural
culture?
heritage?
That's what I'm wondering, does it have to be?
I think
No.
that you could lead them more like, there's certain things you do that are uniquely different, like,
But
the
why
our
does-
area, a lot of
what I'm
Amish
wondering
down
is
the road,
why
they
does it have
speak
to
a
be,
certain language.
why does it have to be cultural? What if it's
Because that's what
That's
we
what
we said the concept was.
I mean, you have
Right, so I'm wondering if that's, that's what I'm kind of wondering is, does it have to be?
But if you put your heritage instead of special events, it totally changes the way that goes.
Yeah, but that's the thing, he likes special things.
But special events to me, it's exactly what you said, it makes me think of basketball trophies, soccer games,
I think that
birthday
it-
party.
Right, which is, but that's, I think that we don't get to decide what special is for any one child, so we let the child make that
But
choice.
that's not heritage.
That's, I don't really, but that, then we change that, is what I'm saying. I think the important part of this to me is kids and people thinking about how we determine what we consider special and why we preserve certain things. So as they're having these discussions about what they consider special, that's going to, so it's not for us to say, well, that's not part of your culture. If they feel like that's important to them, then maybe it is. Maybe sports in their family is important to their culture because that's just part of their family's culture. And so it's not for us to make that determination on what their culture should or shouldn't be.
And I'm
then it
not
goes
saying
across.
that.
And so then it's how do we choose to commemorate our own personal histories, whatever that is. I think that's part of it, is even how do we determine
If a special event
What
is
we
part of their
put.
culture, then it's okay to use culture.
But just because it's a special
But
event doesn't mean
does
it's.
not make it a culture.
Absolutely.
it also, but that's not, again, that's not, I feel like that's not for us to decide. They determine, like, our family, for me, that's what I would have looked at. Does that mean part of who I am even now throughout my culture? I would say those special interest sports played a large role in my life, and it helped determine certain aspects of my culture. So would I have picked that?
So
Yes.
you have broadened this to personal identity and cultural heritage.
I think in this beginning, that's where you start.
For
Is how does a
kindergarten
kid
kids,
think
that's
about
how
how do I determine what's special to me and what I want to hold on to? And we make that same determination when we talk about a national museum, the Smithsonian. There's somebody that's a curator of the Smithsonian who's determining what are those special things that we want to hold on to. Like somebody made a determination to put Stephen Colbert's picture up in the Smithsonian, which made somebody else would have made that seems where I mean, somebody had to make that decision on what gets included and what's not.
Right.
And so that I think as we go through it, it broadens.
Mr. Rogers' sweater and tennis shoes.
Right. Right. And
Well,
the bunker's chair.
Right.
You know, or whatever
But
Archie
that's
wanted to
something
say.
from the past, and when I think heritage, I think
That's a
that's
cultural heritage.
Yeah, you're completely conflating.
But when I think heritage, I think something from the past to now to later on. So like, I win a soccer trophy right now. How did that come from my past to me? Now, it might be important 40 years from now when I make the Olympic team, that could be part of my heritage to the other grandkids or whatever, but I think the special event part is gonna grow them. And I'm not gonna determine what's special to them, because your culture, your heritage should be special to you. I don't think there should be a determination, but I think your heritage is your big word there, your key word.
I think it depends on what it wants. I guess for me, I think for a kid, I would be interested to even have a kid start to think about how does that individual child make that determination on how they determine what things are important and not. Because if they start to say, this is how my family determines it, which is what, because a kindergartner is not going to sit there and just discuss the way they're going to go to their parents. They're going to talk to their parents about how do we determine these things about heritage and culture and all these other pieces. So I think it depends on what we want. If that's all we want to go with, I think that's a different conversation than saying, how do I determine what I want to hold on to because I consider it special.
That's
And
the
telling
all
it me.
Cultural traditions,
So when we look above and we define out what are possible elements of culture, that kind of sets us up. I think the discussion that we're having is the distinction between what's culture and not. Do some special events fall within culture? Yes. Do some special events not fall within culture? So if you describe how you and your family remember and commemorate your cultural heritage, it allows you to include special events.
and nobody's to judge what's right or wrong. I mean, this is how they and their family do it, so. Even within your community, you guys do something different than we do, but as long as they recognize that it's something of heritage that has been passed along. Is that not the key point?
Might as well thought it up to the way that people are going to bring back what we're talking about. But, yeah, it is that way.
But I think the other allows people who want to highlight their culture, whether it's Italian American, German American, whatever, to be able to say, yeah, so this is what we do. These special things that other kids in the classroom may not do. So we have spaghetti for Thanksgiving. Which was a real shock when I went to my wife's family, and there was no turkey. Nope. And ravioli and meatballs, yeah. Wow, this is a really different culture. But that's how they maintain that cultural heritage. That was the same event.
Is that what you said yesterday?
So we've got that written two different ways.
No, I agree.
So somebody make a recommendation. Vote on it.
Aaron, I haven't heard from you today. We'll do what we do with glass.
I know.
I agree with what she just said. I think that, like you had said earlier, that they'll naturally say those things, and that kids are gonna talk about events, because that's what is relative to them. I mean, now, once they get older, you may be able to change that, but their mind is inward, I mean, it's all about them for quite a few years there. So, I mean, special events, I don't think these people.
Shelley?
I don't think it's just the cultural heritage, like that maybe teachers were more lenient down the road with other special things, your mom cooks, or just, keep it off the basketball game or the worst sports thing. I don't think that's not a cultural thing. I just don't think people still think they're cultural sports.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
When I think cultural heritage isn't a part of that, I would definitely.
You're okay with heritage? So we're talking about this part right here. Okay.
I'm okay with it. Now we really, I'm trying to figure out how my kids would answer that. And I don't think, in terms of, this may be a downside to some of our own certain things, but when I think of our cultural heritage, I'm not sure what my kids would have an answer to that. So I think I would maybe end up with special events, because I think as a parent, if this came home and I was supposed to remember my cultural heritage, I think I would struggle with that, what I'm supposed to put in there, and I'm not sure what I would even do. And I would find out, like, fine, just take some stuff and go get this over with and be done with it, because I have no idea what they're actually looking for. Yeah, I think other families, I think you're more likely to get that, you're gonna have families who see that cultural identity as a huge piece of who they are, who can answer this easily. But I think, so I don't know. So I'm okay with it, I think you will, no matter what, you're gonna end up with people who will struggle with that.
The reason I was okay with it, because I looked at A and I looked at the one above it, and I think if there's a foundation built between describing cultural characteristics of your family, your dress, your celebrations, your customs, all that other stuff is built in there to maybe help this one be easier. Because it's not, I would hope they wouldn't just jump to this one first, which is why I would put it more at the bottom. I don't know if they're gonna teach you more or not, but at the top we've got, talk about holidays, artistic expression, food, dress, things you do in your family. So maybe they'd have a better understanding of what heritage is.
But if we're trying to get, if I'm gonna look at this strictly from my own children, if the goal for my kids is to learn how we preserve certain things about our families or about our society, I don't think they'll get that out of this. I think they'll think, I don't really know, so here's something that would seem special to me at the time. And not really think about why I'm keeping a hold of this, or why it is that I'm gonna preserve this, or, so I think it depends on what it is.
I think we'll have to build that through the rest of the glees, because you don't get it out of this one. I can live with the way it is. I would prefer and special events again, but I can live with the way it is. So, if that's the kindergarten glee, how's that build up to first grade?
Community. Or school.
I'd almost describe how families in your community.
But then again, like our community has special events that your community doesn't have.
Right.
You
Or
know, like big special events, or your school.
your school buries a time capsule. That's a way to preserve history.
We have country days every year for the time stuff.
Don't you like that?
Preservation at that time, right?
They used to do
Handwriting.
calligraphy.
I guess that.
I used to.
We, last month, the
Nice to meet
You want to
back
do
in
Olive Garden?
elementary.
That's my
They used to do sign making and calligraphy. I've had to leave that.
That's what a political science degree gets you.
a nice email. I'm not sure how, is it essential for you to go read certain people's handwriting? Not sure.
You know,
I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time on it.
Essential if you're our family investment.
You want that special events and that's
There's
lots
lots
back
in
under the other business.
Well, the other thing is
It's
just
left
the
over
writing
from-
process,
Oh, I
you know,
thought
all the research
you
now
went back
says
to
the
doing it.
retention of information through writing versus
Versus
typing
typing.
is tremendous.
Absolutely. You're not gonna win that battle.
But it doesn't need to be written in cursive.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't, but
No,
it
it
doesn't
doesn't.
hurt either.
Describe
No, I
how
think
you
that
write
you're right.
describe how your community
I can remember
uses
too,
memory
I don't write, you have to make mandatory, but it
Memorize
you have to
it.
wait.
Like memorizing
multiplication. It's really fun. It's a life skill that you might use one day, but the rest of your teachers have to learn how to so you can. A birthday card.
That's what I mean.
Your mother gave you this.
That doesn't feel right.
I still write Christmas.
Well,
No,
I
I
do
did the
too.
grandparent. I do too. But I'm just saying.
And
It's a
it would be
generational
describe
thing too.
how
So if you
regions-
because the generations, my kids all learn.
Regions commemorate cultural
They actually
heritage.
still did it in school, but my youngest, the junior, had kind of gone by the wayside. But
State, nation, world.
he had, I always make sure he had like teacher was like her last junior, she was retiring. And he, for some, after a few years, he was,
Commemorate cultural heritage.
like it's used now. He is the quietest kid, but.
And then I think it might stop there
Yeah,
because
thanks,
then you're
Molly.
talking, because then you're looking specifically through the lens of.
There's lots of
This-
research out
this
right
is
now.
like
Well,
environmental-
and here's,
What-
here is,
What they say
here's
is
my
that
question.
this is exactly what you're saying.
Have we got to the
Inputting
preservation?
What you're not thinking, when you have to
Oh,
write it,
yeah.
you can't
See what
write
I'm
as
saying?
fast as you're hearing stuff. You can
If
do
we
that.
do
So
it-
you end up having to think about
I'm
what you're
fine with
writing,
it here, but
consolidate it.
when we
But
get to
aren't you doing
Missouri,
that through research? When you research, you're
And
looking
if you
at,
can do that, then you retain it. That's
that
very
is the
good.
way you're experiencing the preservation of it by studying.
I think the word cultural is still gonna throw people off throughout all this. Because that's true.
But it says yeah.
I just, I think,
And I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to special events. I think everyone
no, I just think, I mean,
And it's still,
And there's
So
tons of research
here's-
to support it.
so
my kids, my older children.
describe how Missouri,
see it. Okay, yeah.
describe how
I was thinking we're in
Missouri,
fourth grade. This is third grade, isn't
yeah,
it?
describe how
Yeah.
Missouri preserves.
Cultures in Missouri.
We do that through our symbols. We do that through our
Right, well, the
fair.
state of Missouri does it too.
Yes.
I mean, we.
But individual cultures within Missouri too, separate from the
We
state.
do that through advertising and tourism. We
Right.
I mean, there's lots of ways.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we write that? 'Cause that, I think that's a,
How about describe how people in Missouri
Can we just put preserve here?
preserve their cultural heritage?
I mean, to me, that's where you're really switching.
And that allows you to talk about the state or individual groups. Oh, it's great. I love when I roll out like a facsimile of the
But in essence,
Declaration of
that
Independence. You see where they
curriculum is
make
about
mistakes.
preserving cultural heritage.
They make mistakes. Yeah, are you gonna rewrite all this? You're just gonna cross out, put in a carrot.
There's no backspace.
Put a little carrot and you add a little, you know, a word, you know. Well, that and spelling wasn't standardized.
so do we, at this
I
point,
still just struggle with cultural heritage. I'm not sure there is a Missouri, I mean, is there a Missouri, do we say there's a singular
No,
Missouri
that's why we say
cultural
people
heritage?
of Missouri.
Show me.
In Missouri. So it's not, we're not saying how do you preserve Missouri's
I mean, I think through, I even think just even a region, is there, I mean, I think there's things that I just,
If you ask other people if there is
Ozark.
there is a culture. I mean,
Right.
my California family thinks it's marry your cousin, so I mean, they see us different.
Right.
I'm not even kidding. I'm
Right.
like, really?
I know, but
I kind of did, but it's really, really distant.
And we kind of put that on the Arkansas people here. We
Some
say,
from
but I don't
different
know.
sides of the family.
But, yeah, I would agree. I don't think everybody.
I guess that's just the same issue I have all the way across is the word cultural heritage.
Is that
I just think the word cultural will throw people off.
Is it your family's history and heritage? Because cultural is already over there?
History, I don't know, I just,
But I don't think it will get to his point.
Hey,
yes.
what about cultural tradition and not heritage?
I would just leave out the word cultural in this probably.
And see, that's the
And just
point.
put heritage?
Yeah.
Because I think if you're talking about
You have
museums,
cultural
state
here.
parks.
And that's where we're at.
I think what you're talking about with this is not necessarily just talking about their culture, you're talking about preserving artifacts, you're talking about preserving things that they, and maybe that is culture, I think when you go with cultural, people are going to start to put it in smaller boxes, whether they should or shouldn't. And I think, yeah, I think that's gonna be a tough one. But what we're talking about are preserving those things that we consider important, or there's artifacts that tell something about the history of Missouri, and I'm not sure it's necessarily cultural. And I just think that you're gonna open this up, and I'm not sure there's gonna be a clear answer. And I could be way off, and I may be the only one who thinks this. I just am curious
Okay, how,
how a state park represents Missouri's cultural heritage.
what do we preserve about Missouri?
I think that's two different, I think those can be two different conversations. How we determine what to preserve is a different conversation than what's our cultural heritage.
But isn't how what we preserve part of our culture? What we determine is what you should preserve part of the culture?
I think it is.
What we put importance on.
Right. So I think this is nationally, around 1900 we started determining that our natural resources were important to preserve. Some people may argue we've gone overboard with what we're trying to preserve resources, but that was a sea change with Teddy Roosevelt. So I just think those things, that is a cultural piece that in the United States we value those things. We value some of our presidents. They all have libraries. Value
We
some
value
of
some
them.
of our.
I value some
What
of
are you
more than
talking?
others.
US, you're talking Missouri, what we value.
Oh, I mean,
I mean, in that.
That one's a Missouri.
This is
that one's a
third grade,
Missouri
yeah.
one, but I'm just trying, I like that idea of, in my family, I may preserve it differently. I've got a little crate for every kid, and I put things inside their crate.
I keep reading cartoons.
You keep reading
I
cartoons?
do.
I
I
do
don't
too.
know. You know what? But I do it as part of my culture. I do it because my grandma did it, not because I look at them or I feel bad for them. Part of tradition.
So do you want to?
I don't buy them anymore. I can't bring myself to pay $6 or $7 for it.
Every one of them, and my mom said never do this, because it was the hardest thing to go through all the cards she'd ever read from her mother. And she said we cried for hours, she was in debt. But see, then again, here's,
Well,
special things your kids first writing, and there's some cute images.
I'm not good with whatever else says.
Okay. You said,
I think you said a lot of people throw people off, but I'm good with that.
Number D, I put ETC.
right, I think that's so too. Is there a,
Because I'm thinking about, there's other than just state museums, there are other kinds of museums that reflect different cultures, such as the blues museums that do things.
right, and that's museums
Just
at the
the-
top.
Right.
So, should we put festival?
Or the hair museum.
Festivals?
Or like Daniel Boone Homestead. Or the Herman we never had trivia nights in Ohio.
People are heard about really good trivia.
No, it's all serious stuff. You don't have trivia night?
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and in St. Louis,
Never heard of trivia night?
all the communities in St. Louis, there is, trivia
Tables,
nights.
people put on like trivia competition. Essentially, it's like a trivia competition. You get like a table of 10 people, pay to come in, and there's questions, and keep track, and they score, and the table wins, and we go down to the teams, and
So,
all kinds of stuff.
it's just social gathering.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fundraiser.
Huh.
So,
Gotta get ready for church.
you know, it's a big fun. It's a school. A lot of schools fundraise. A lot of things now do this on churches, fundraisers, and you just throw a trivia night, a big screen, you
Okay.
have all these questions.
Do we need to go, do we need to pull this out into the nation or no?
I just feel like when you're studying for things, you're doing it, but I don't.
Very similar to taking yourself on.
It does also. Like data.
Right.
Well, I guess you could look at the relationship between things that happen today. Why do we do sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite? Came from that colonial time period. So I guess,
Analyze the relationship between
past and present culture. Past and
I mean, to play with that in your mind, I think so too.
or we still drink tea today in our culture today. We
No, I
drink
mean,
it
that's
because we
it's
use the
really,
tea bag
really
in the culture there. It came in brick, like tea. I mean, I do. Some of that I think is just everyday life.
Right. Okay, give us some feedback here. We're trying to think through what do we really want.
Is this about preserving culture?
Well, that in your studying this research, as you make connections between culture past and present, that's the way.
You wanna analyze how the cultures have been maintained from past to present? Or preserved from past to present? Versus, this is talking about, to me, as I read that, that's like how's culture changed over
Yeah,
time.
you could reverse-
Versus the preservation idea of this whole thing is how have we.
I agree.
How have we preserved it
Don't
across
take that
time.
out though, because you could just put in the middle, analyze the preservation of cultural life celebrations, traditions, and commemoration of time.
And kind of back into the box of
Yeah.
the concept.
Over time.
did, but we've got state symbols here.
Okay.
So potentially, we're doing what I wanted to do. I can live with what we've done.
I think we talked about American Dream probably being principles of the Republic or the government.
Yes.
Done? Lock it up, put in the lockbox, take a break.
Well, here's I'll throw one out for you. In the 5th grade, under the one above it, what if we were to have students create a story, a song, create
Haven't done anything in that quadrant for anywhere yet.
create a project that communicates a portion of cultural heritage. So I don't want, it could be, some teachers would say something related to your family, some would say something related to our region or the time period we're studying. We've had them
Yeah, that
research and
autonomy.
share stories.
Yeah.
We've not
For
asked
them to do beyond.
Right. Using research, create
You're on that slippery slope towards curriculum versus standard.
I agree. But what is that next?
Well, what did we keep for A in tools of inquiry? Because that's where they have 5th grade had select, investigate, and present a topic.
Right. That's just one down, right? Yeah. Identify, select, analyze, and evaluate resources to create a product of social science inquiry. So maybe
we
that
took out
would,
the to create a product.
Because I recall that conversation back, you don't want to limit what that product.
Right.
right, so maybe that will fit,
Sustain
I'll
and
just,
deliver.
so we don't need that. Okay.
I mean, if you wanted to have something in that 5th grade about different cultural, what was it that was the cultural beliefs, ideas and beliefs, then you could do a standard that could be, explore the different cultural ideas and beliefs of the United States and combined with this tools of inquiry, that exploration could take on
Yeah, so a gym where people can go practice and they climb the wall. On your way home, you need to Google it and just watch an episode like that.
Oh, you're good.
But yeah, they
Got a whole
did.
array of podcasts on the way home.
It did. They the one where they brought in all the Olympic athletes and the NFL football players. And all
Yeah,
that.
they were great.
And it's like, no, you know what parkour is?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, I've seen Michael Scott do it in the office. Years ago.
This is like extreme parkour with
Yeah, it's parkour. People
with
who do
water and
parkour do
swinging
real
and
well.
jumping and climbing. There's one. There's the wall climb at the end, Patrick, where it's just 2 walls, and you have to spider
Oh,
right
yeah,
your way
yeah.
up.
She's the PE teacher at our school. Oh.
Okay.
Again.
His pin at school works. You can't just go by and know it. Okay, and he's still saying that one or do that.
She shows her.
I know, I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go. Is that one of our kids on
Yeah.
board?
Okay, sorry. Thanks, bye.
You better cross that gym, didn't you?
Boy, I could do that. That hurts my knees.
What I think is amazing is to watch this stuff. She is so good at this.
Who's my favorite guy on that budget? You need to worry about him from a year to year.
But she does the. There's one point where she crawls all around the ceiling.
No.
She also
On their thing, you take the bar in your hand and you pop.
With the bar?
Yes. And so you have to hit the right notches where you're in the water.
That was my son's goal to get on some tryouts. Ended up in shoulder surgery.
Ah.
They have a niche warrior gym at this,
Well,
where they have
in,
that 11th.
they've got one in Springfield now. The Seymour Band Director.
For a little bit with the shoulder surgery.
The Seymour Band Director has come to gym.
Anyway, so it's tonight. Tonight's the first round of the first elimination round. Yeah, they have it all set up at Union Station, the whole every
Oh,
board.
cool. You always see reruns. Our brother was there getting that.
Cool. What are you talking about? Yeah, I've got a student who's competing.
The
Kansas City. She's done all the tryouts and.
Who is?
She goes by the machine, but is her name.
Oh.
That's kind of her nickname.
Yes.
It's Kristen Meyer. She invited me to come see. You know when they film, the runs go between midnight and 5 a.m.
Yeah, it's early morning.
Yeah, so that's when they do
So
the
will she
runs.
be on this one when it starts?
Yeah.
When
Well,
did they
they're
do that?
they're going to compete. What is it, next week or a week after, something like that? Is when the competition in Kansas City will be.
It starts tonight.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it starts tonight.
She
Yeah.
was saying, so it won't be that one, because you said this
That
one.
looks like a weird day.
This one's at Union Station.
Yeah, in Kansas City.
So that's
Yeah,
the
that's the
one.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll be in that one. Yeah.
I don't know when it's being broadcast. I just know the film is.
She's so
We DVR it.
when it was, but yeah, so she's going to be competing. She's really good.
That looks like
Kids,
fun.
your kids can.
She-
Right now I'm learning roller skate. That's
She's
awesome.
about that tall.
You're learning?
At the beginning of the year, we were discussing growth mindset and some of these things at school. And at the beginning of the year, one of the, like the power of yet, you can't do something, you just can't do it yet. And so I was discussing how when I was a kid, I was played a lot of sports on campus, going and tried to roller skate, kid parties. It didn't work for me very well at the beginning, so I just would do it, and I just quit doing it, and just would never. So like in high school. school, we did roller skating in high school and PE. Because I knew I couldn't do it, I just wouldn't do it, so I'd run laps while everybody else roller skated.
So you're talking on the quad, not the
Right.
legs.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, beginning of the year, I told the students the story and told them that my goal for this year was to learn how to roller skate, and if I can get to where I do it, I'll roller skate to school, roller skate through the hallways of school. So I've got to practice roller skating. But the hardest part at first would be finding people. Like, I went to Dick's Sporting Goods in Chesterfield. I was like, you guys have like roller skates? And the guy just started laughing. So I of course I had to find them on Amazon. But I do have some. 13.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That also is limited.
And then size 13 roller skate with the old
We
four
call
wheels
them
on it.
skateboards, you call them roller
They also a lot of them. So it's quite that crazy just yet.
That's interesting.
Do you do CrossFit or you just?
No, I've thought about it. Really, my problem is I don't like going to the gym. I don't like working out in the gym. I don't like all the other people in there. And I don't like all the guys with all the testosterone when they're out there wanting to show how much stronger they are. I just like to do it so I can do it.
Yeah.
That looked like fun. That's what she was doing. I looked like, that looked like fun. Like the monkey bars, all that. They don't have all that different equipment. That's the hard part. With some of that stuff.
That's where the gym.
So there,
They build
I
it
could,
at
I could get you to address a place for some training, because there's a place.
Oh, there's a lot of CrossFit gyms. There's a lot of gyms.
No, this is
It's
one
like
that,
Ninja Warrior gym.
Ninja Warrior gym.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm quite ready for
It's
this.
it's pretty amazing
The
what she
grip
can
strength
do.
is crazy.
I mean, it's crazy though,
But
because
you know,
like she'll
it's
show
not the big guys
videos.
that are good at it.
The center of gravity is
Smaller,
tough.
they're wiry.
Yeah, like I said, she's like that tall and tough.
And I did a warrior dash a year ago. Months to recover.
Yeah, I wouldn't even try.
My arm was numb for 5 months. I was
Parts of very well.
bruised and
Yeah.
rash. I had a black eye.
I've had two.
I'm not a woman.
They, what was it, right, well, it was right before our spring break, they had we had a half day, and the junior high kids did a volleyball tournament in our gym. Well, they wanted the teachers to have a team. I'm not a junior high teacher, but they didn't have, one of the junior high teachers couldn't do this. They asked me if I would do it. And the most exercise I do is walk into my car in my lazy boy, and that's basically it. I was so sore after I did that. I mean, it was
Hey, Laura, what did
Yes,
you
sir.
add 5? Tell me where you're talking about. Did you make a suggestion? You said add 5. Laura sent a suggestion on Google Doc.
My arms were hurting.
I think I just typed in the number 5 on accident. I can make it work. No, we're good.
Okay, then I won't add anything.
I wasn't sore after the warrior dash, but it's like, I looked at it and I'm looking at the number 5, cultural heritage and preservation, like, okay. Sorry about
But
that.
I had a black eye, my knees were bloodied and bruised.
Where did that?
Yeah, the thing we did were in Raleigh, it was in Empory, and it was in March, it was like a year ago,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while since I did it, and my oldest son, one of my still that, so he did it with one of his coaches from high school, and they go around and do this, but I was like, okay, I'll do it. The first thing you do is you go up this huge slide into the water in Empory, and this is early March, and I knew it would take my breath, I had no idea, and I died. Which my husband doesn't do any of this, he works all day, and I don't want to use my body like this. I hit that water, and I was like, I came up, could not breathe for me, and told somebody, swim, I'm like, swim, I'm like, I couldn't breathe. Went downhill from there, I bloodied my nose getting in the water, I scratched my eye, it was,
I love, we did it, last 2 years, there's one right outside of St. Louis, and we've done it with our staff. I got taking teachers with me, and we go out to the
Yeah,
warrior
that's
dash,
fun to
and we do it in a big group. And
Yeah.
so we had like, in the first year, we had like 8 or 9, last year we had I think like 19 or 20 teachers that did it. And so,
So you have like the big, they look like semi-trailers that you climb up and you climb down the road, just go out, I like them.
there's been a bunch of, the last one they added a big slide and some water, but we did, this one was in August, so it wasn't as cold. I did one that's called the Battlegrounds, that's at a winery outside of St. Louis. They do it twice a year. So I'm actually doing it again in a couple called the polar plunge, where you run up and it's a 20-foot drop into ice water. And so it's supposed to be like 35 degrees, and so you jump and it does. It's in it because you can feel like your body starting to tighten just from the cold water, and so you get to swim out quick. And they're yelling at you as you're running up this thing. They're like yelling at you, don't stop, just go. And so you just jump off the thing, and you realize that you're falling in like 15 feet of water.
That's a scary feeling. I've never just had that seize up, freeze.
That's a lot of the Tough Mudder is the one that a lot of people do.
My son did the Tough Mudder, and I don't have any interest in being shocked.
Yeah, that's the part I would avoid. I don't really get the idea why I need to be shocked.
It's just tougher.
I don't mind the water, I don't mind all the other stuff, but why I need to get
And there's no way
electrocuted.
around it. That's what Justin said. He goes.
They have wires that dangle.
Got live wires, and
Run
crawl
through
under them.
crawl
It's
these
just that
wires and
many
they
fish
stab
go.
you.
And there's no way not to get hit.
There's several, I've heard from some people who said they've actually got that and they black out.
You do black out. He's kind of released before.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Justin did black out.
But the
You didn't know where
warrior
you're
It's a
gonna
Tough
strike
Mudder,
out.
yeah.
And a Tough Mudder.
Tough Mudder, yeah, well, warrior
You
guys
signed
is like
it,
3
signed it
miles.
electricity. You
Yeah.
signed the release that says if I die.
Yeah, you do it that far. I mean, there's just too much. There's cliffs and people are just
That's why I wouldn't do it.
Well,
It's a lot of fun. I love it.
there again, nobody
I
has
also
a gun to your head, so
right.
you're just gonna go around
I also did, my wife and daughter did it last year too.
Mm-hmm.
Now my next one's this one in May. This one
And what's it, just like a water dash?
it's like
Not
that.
just,
There's a lot
I
more
mean,
water.
not
It's a little bit longer, so instead of 3 miles, it's this one's 5 miles. The Tough Mudder is like 15.
See, that's what, yeah, his like at least was 15. I did, it was 5K, so it was a 3.
The electrocution of it, but the
That's
water
what
and the
I'm
mud
not
and all that
doing.
stuff is fun. I mean, really, like we didn't know what we were getting into, but especially when we do it with a group. Like by the end of it, we had, I mean, everybody. If you asked me, they always say, and when everybody said it was a lot more fun than it. We go slow. We're helping each other out. You know, like
That's
the
where
one I'll do
it's
in May,
really
or I'll do it more as a race. Like I'll go, but this one goes like 3 miles. It takes an hour and a half because if you go slow, and I'll go back and we'll help people like over the wall.
I was just saying, I think that's like not hard this workout and just cardio nets.
Right. Like
There's
a
no
lot of cardio.
stability in that long. That's what it is.
Yeah.
We
my
had to
student
crawl
can do
through
the
that
work
line,
wall.
but
She
that's
can do
face
it,
down,
yeah.
and you're growing.
It's the mud river, yeah, they do one where you're upside down.
Yeah.
The one the year before, they had monkey bars, and it was over water.
And see, I'm not.
And this one guy, wasn't with us, this guy was trying to go to the monkey bars, and he got right almost in the water, like a pit of water, and both sides are swinging. And he got to the last one, and then it landed right on where it landed on his back. It was like square on the corner. Because the monkey bar was like we would go, like I went through, and then I went back, and like I would help pull people. Because like some people was like, I'm not skipping, because you can go around the fence. And some people were like, I'm just not going to. Some people try to help. The hardest one, is mud mounds. You guys have the mud mounds? They're like these, like there's a trough in front of it, and they put water in it, and then there's slick mud on the other side. And so you have to stand in water that's about up to your waist, and then try to go climb over this mound of mud. And something like that, you could try to jump over it, but it was real slick, so you might hit the mud mound and you slide back down. So you have to have somebody sit at the top of the mountain and grab people and pull them up the side. But it's fun.
Right. That person needing help.
I mean, everybody,
So sorry.
those mud mounds, everybody did.
We kind of put that in an awkward place because we made it its own concept, so we want to give it a letter.
We can. Do we change the letter on all these when we clean it up?
We can do that too, just as long as we remember it's totally different.
Yes,
And
we
then-
will. That discussion is
And have we
concrete.
hit everything on our notes?
I think so.
We said American Dream will figure out along the way somewhere.
This we're going to add to,
Either governance or principles of the republic. I think it fits probably
One or
with
two.
principles of the republic. Also.
And then it looks like to me we were done. Unless someone wants to add something to 6.
we didn't talk anything about the silent culture, but I think that's okay.
I think that's gonna come in with ideas and beliefs,
Yes.
and then when kids talk to their families.
I agree. Good stuff.
Okay. So did you say we're going on to 2?
Yep.
And why 2 as opposed to 1? Just
Because
curious.
last month we talked about what would come next, and we said two.
Okay.
That was the only reason.
Just curious.
It's a secret. We're hoping it won't be good.
long positive.
Sure.
I
I'm
know
fine with
those
that.
long positive on Google.
There's no worries there.
These discussions.
So much faster. she was.
No, last month when we,
Yeah. Yeah. I just can't wait to highlight everything and turn it into the cursive font and see if you do it. Get ready, Patrick.
No, I can do that, but I just want, it's just a waste of time, you know? I mean, last part, it's about teaching kids to read regular text.
Oh, and I think they need to do that first.
There is
I think at some point in time.
there's some marvelous new brain research out in the last few years about how cursive speech comprehension and understanding.
We were just talking about that.
Just saying.
We're so.
Okay, strand 2.
Page 6, I believe. If that goes in. You know, it'd be interesting to take that title and like randomly pull 1,000 teachers and see what they think it means. Survey monkey. I'm just saying. I know. I have major issues with that.
Which one?
No, on the blue placemat, remember it says principles of constitutional democracy. Nope, not the blue placemat, they couldn't. She's got it.
After this, there was a debate or whatever, and they changed it, right? We got an email. I got an email. Did you let them do it?
I don't remember.
We got an email.
I'm pretty sure that they changed the blue placemat. That was the problem, was there was a conflict. That, as I recall the conversation, is a directive was sent from the legislature to Chris Castro saying change it. And so she changed it in the actual plea document, but it could not be changed on the placemat. Right.
We weren't gonna open that.
So the placemat still says constitutional democracy, because it takes legislative action and a vote to change. But Castro changed the plea document at the request of, I think it was the speaker or someone. I can't recall, but we got information on that.
So my first issue with this first page. I always do. You know, I've broken out the different flows. And I just I don't understand what this title is. One is a concept and one is a subconcept of a concept. You know, so when I see anything to do with it, it's just
Okay, so if y'all want to look at the concept pieces, we'll start there examining the concepts. We have to. Yes. Strand 2. Right, if you see something you think's missing or you need to add, subtract, or curse about something.
way, I'd like to see it show up in someone you can school in, right?
Well,
I'm not trying
yeah,
to bully you
I
into
guess
voting.
it's saying that, I don't feel like I'm condoning it, I just see, wow, it's bled over into every, yes. Just what are the roles of government? Like all this and every issue might be. Which goes without being citizenship, absolutely, and that's. If you learn what's like government, really important. You are right. So anyway.
All right, kind of the same thing. One thing that I did notice that the similarities and differences between governmental systems, there's nothing to
Yeah.
provide. I mean, I don't think we should have it K2 probably anyway, but starting in Missouri, we should probably have something there. You know, similarities and differences of governmental systems.
Yeah, when you think about the historical years, you know, comparing a
When we
monarchy
start
to,
Missouri, I think we should start that. I mean,
You didn't do state to your national, right? I think you already just was.
Well, comparing the differences between the branches of government. I mean, what's their role compared to the others?
But local, state, national.
Yeah.
that's in
Maybe
there.
the reasons for that,
Governmental
why we
systems.
have that all parties are
But there's the other way for Aaron, for what you're saying is that, like, when we were talking about that colonial period, distinguishing of systems of government,
Mhm.
monarchy versus representative government, that's what it's saying.
When you look at, do we talk about any governmental systems, that was thinking about it? Native American.
Right.
Right, so how does that fit with what was here and then what we brought?
Iroquois Nation, Seneca Treaty of Seneca, all that sort of thing.
I was just saying they have roles and staff. So they have, they have something there. You're gonna say what? They didn't write for it.
What about me? What about me?
What else, Aaron, I'm sorry.
That's fine. The other thing that I don't know how it's all gonna come out, because I think we do need to have the discussion, like you said, about the how much government we should have in. I mean, somebody said that about how much the government should play a role in, and what role they should play in people's lives. I know that's going to be a touchy subject for a lot of people, but where does that fit, I guess, as far as kids making that decision on their own, I guess. And I don't know where it's necessarily going to fit into it, but I think it's important.
We're just kids learning about.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that,
What's the function of government?
yeah,
And how do different communities divide them? Because some communities want a lot of government, some don't. So what are kind of the basic functions, and then how are those filled in individual communities, for instance?
I'm gonna struggle with what you said, keeping one separate from two.
I think it's good.
And that's the first thing I wrote down, because I wanted to have it in front of me to see. Which is why when you said two first, and the first thing I think of was when all of a sudden I went back to one, is all the rules.
Distinguishing those two strands in a way that's meaningful.
Patrick?
When I look at two, I think they're not talking about just the American system. I think at times we're talking from essentially just looking at our own system. I think that's what's addressing one. I think two is looking at governance systems. So that's why they talk about schools, that's why they talk about all these different places where there's a system that takes care of some of these other, or like, they talk about rules, they talk about common good, they talk about why people may look to have governments, they talk about some of those things, but I don't think it's necessarily just, or we may have to look at that, but to me they're talking about governance systems, not just how our government system works. So I think that may be a part of how we look at some of these, because I think even be similar is in differences of governance systems, and I think that's kind of what they start to get into. How decisions are made in families and classrooms, they do get, and that's why I think there is a little bit of it. We talk about the 3 branches of government in there, which to me is something that's not laid out in a governance system, but is laid out in the documents that they talk about in principles number 8 in the first part. So I think you could probably figure out how to make that clear. So I think I'm wondering exactly what do we want this strand to actually be. So I think before we actually start looking, I think there should be a conversation on what we actually want this to look like.
Good point.
Even the distinguishing of powers and functions of local, state, and national government, if we're going to talk about that, that is something else that's also laid out in other, there's the Constitution, but then there's the state constitutions, there's other documents that played into this as that were part of how that all works. Like, why is education, why are we in this room? Because education was given to states to determine, not of the federal, which is in. So I think those are unique to ours, which is the principles of the republic. I also think that's an important enough thing to look at on its own that it still needs to have its own strength. So I think this, I'm not sure what the rationale behind some of these are, but I think I want to have a clearer picture on what we actually think. If it has to stay the same, what is it that we're looking for in this, and what else could we put in there? Is there I don't know if there's a citizenship, I don't know if it's citizenship, I guess it could be, is it the rights of individuals, is it, some of those, I don't know if it comes into what those, if it's rights or if it's just, I think that does come in when we talk about common good, and, but I'm a little, but I would just like this to be clear as of governance systems. I don't think it has to just be ours, and I think there is some importance between saying, here's different governance systems, and then shaping what our American means. I think that is, like we talked a little bit about after we left yesterday, that is, there's this experiment, the American experiment is what it is. That's supposed to be this separate from what everybody else has done, and that is what makes it somewhat unique, whether it's that's what the American dream and some of those other pieces come in. So I would just like to be clear on trying to figure out what this dream actually is.
Because it bleeds over a lot into the first one. I wrote down my general thoughts were also a thing we said we would come back to when we were talking about history is we probably should include a strand, a lead that has something to do with understanding presidents. And some of what we talked about, is that something we memorize, or is that something we just talk about, or we just work in? But we probably should have something in there about the role of the presidency. So that's something we've already talked about. Does that go here or strand 1? I'm not sure. I wrote down, it kind of spoke to the roles of a limited government, but it doesn't. How does that fit in? That's a lot of controversy nowadays that we make sure it's in there. The difference between the responsibilities of federal, state, and local doesn't seem spelled out enough for me, but I have one other thing.
Yeah, because an authority is someone who has exercises legitimate power, and a bully exercises illegitimate power. And it's a fine distinction, but that's why someone is considered legitimate or not. And an authority is that, and that can be at so many different levels. And what are the characteristics of a?
And I don't know if we go back to this, in the last, or in 6 we talked about groups, right? So eventually, because part of where governments even come from is this idea of that social contract. That on my own I have this, but whenever we combine our, we have protection, we have all these things that come from that social contract of giving up a little bit so that we can have the gains of being stronger as a whole. So that may mean that we even start with family groups or other types of groups that people join for that affiliation purpose and other things. I don't know if that goes in. I mean, I'm still unclear on whether this is supposed to be about government systems or whether it's supposed to be about the way our government runs, which is considered to be two kind of different things. The only other thing I will say about the role of government, I think we gotta be real careful that we don't input our own opinion one way or the other into this. I think we've gotta be careful to, if we do things with that, it's gotta be in the form of questions that kids are then thinking through and coming up with answers based on facts. And that's where I think essential questions things may come in. But if we can sit here and say we could have a debate about it in the in our own, amongst ourselves about what that may look like, then I think we have to be careful not to make sure that it goes into what we then put on students.
I think too, we said there are people that are legitimate abolition, so that would go into the leaders.
Yeah, I wondered if we could.
Leadership, regardless of how legitimate, how they use it.
That's right.
That might be such a job. And then looking at the stuff like, because it's interesting point that you brought up, Patrick. Looking at what they have here, I'm thinking they're talking about our governing system, but
And I
it
think
doesn't,
that
not
is one.
there. I'm
It
looking
just
what's on
right.
the boxes seem to be like our
Big.
branches,
Right.
but reading that, I can see
And the
we're
way that
studying
you-
more than one type.
Because under one it says knowledge of principles expressed in documents shaping the republic, and so the stuff that we're talking about are the things that were laid out in those documents, which I think is slightly different.
Yeah, well, I think they do both in here. I think they waffle back and forth. Yeah, they waffle between kind of general principles of all governments, like
And then
order,
talk more
safety.
specifically about us.
And then they also say, but, oh, what, since we're studying governments, we need to teach about the structure of our government.
Okay, so,
Ooh, you gonna try to take them in tandem?
no, I'm not.
It's like, that's ambitious.
Hey, by God, we can do this.
That's ambitious right there.
Okay, so, thought would be, I say we lunch at 11:30, so I guess it's 22 minutes or so. Do we, try to clarify in our own minds what fits in this box and what fits in that box? So then we're not going back and forth between, because I think the more clarity we have at the beginning, the less clarifying we have to do as we go.
So if we just look at number 2, the 3 things that stood out to me were dispute resolution, decision-making process, and then there was the weird one I see where it's like, explain why we have rules and branches of government. And if you do the same thing with strand 1, you get so much more that stands out. I think I came up with like 10 or 12.
Although it's interesting that last thing about the rules and laws is in strand 1.
I know, that's what I'm saying, that part on C is just weird.
Yeah, I almost want to say
The
that.
branches are too.
Yeah, I almost.
Dispute resolution, tell me yours again, I'm gonna write those down, what you just said. Dispute resolution.
Decision making.
Decision making.
They had dispute resolution, decision making, and then they had this weird combo of rules and the branches.
Yeah, structure of government.
Yeah.
And then structure of government.
Slash rule slash.
But an interesting way to think about it, I think, I mean, that's what's currently there, I agree completely with Laura. But it's an interesting way to think about what Patrick was saying, which is, do we want to say, this is what all governments have and need to operate in this area? Why? Because of these documents.
My preference is leaning that direction, but,
So that the government strand really becomes about all governments. And general, it becomes like general governance principle, ideas. I won't even use the word principles at this point.
and I think
And functions, ideas and functions.
the 612 group, Kathy, hasn't the 612 group defined these too?
Yes.
I
No,
thought
I
they-
think is it civic minimum?
What does it become to do?
My viewpoint from a teacher is we're looking at it and teaching the us than them. And I'd rather teach the concept and then within that concept the differences of that concept. I'd rather teach the concept of decision making, how we deal with it in America, how we deal with it in this time period, how we deal with it in that time period. But that's how I look at it.
Government have decision-making processes, often have decision-making processes in the United States.
We think that
Right.
one particular way, majority rule, minority right.
But within that, all governments have decision-making processes. Are we going to be learning about the different government processes from where? How's that concept?
It depends on which, probably depends on which historical period you're in.
So we're not even looking at till fourth grade?
Third grade, you're looking at Native American.
Okay.
In K-1 and 2, I think you're looking at,
Rules.
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 So you're building the foundation to where,
Laws are like rules, except they're codified and bring harsher penalties.
Sometimes.
I was gonna say, what?
They had history, government, geography, economics, people movement. That's their curriculum. Right?
They drops. So they embedded it in there.
so if they don't have principles of government, right?
Which is what?
They don't have social sciences.
Well, all of
No,
it's couched in
everything's
social.
couched under that.
Which
Yes.
is why I.
So their focus was the skill and application and the content you would use to do that versus.
Which makes sense from where they are at the secondary level. We're building the foundation, so they're assuming we've done a good job and they're just moving forward. So they combine 1 and 2. We're trying to make sure we understand the differences between the two. So whatever we do is not going to affect them.
So here's my question, is it worth deciding what's gonna separate the two and then having kids understand that? Or is it worth teaching the one concept, maybe that is umbrella under the two, and then explaining how that concept works? Cause like, I look back at one and it says, identify what laws have you made. Okay, I get that from a kid's standpoint in your class. But then if I'm gonna take that over to the decision-making process of the government,
Yeah, so that one I would put in government.
Right, I
That
would
should
too.
be in principle.
I wouldn't put it in principle.
No,
Yeah,
that
I
should
agree.
be in government.
so beside decision-making, would you put laws and rules? I mean, or is it its own check mark, or?
So you're thinking an arrow to laws and rules?
is it
So
its own
That would be,
part?
that would be part of how
Right.
you make decisions. Or it could be its own concept.
I think it could be its own concept.
Because all governments have laws.
Yeah, and you don't always,
And it's just a
decision
question I
making
keep
isn't
asking
always
myself.
a rule or a law. I mean, you can make a decision, it's not necessarily.
Right, and decision making is really about the process of decision making.
So where does citizenship play a part?
It becomes part of the structure of government. But citizenship, as we know it in the U.S., I think falls under principles of the republic the way it currently stands in the beliefs. Because right now, all citizens' rights and responsibilities fall under principles of the republic. But it's not even talked about in government.
So when we're thinking about character ed, I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
structure of different government systems play different roles.
Under
Right.
which one?
In government.
In government, I
Okay, so
agree.
my fear is we're gonna put everything in your government.
No, because then when we get to principles of the republic, we talk specifically about our country and the role that citizens should be playing in our country.
Okay.
Because citizens play different roles in different
The roles
countries.
of
I
a
understand.
citizen in North Korea looks a little different.
Absolutely.
I understand.
Absolutely. If you're a citizen in a monarchy, you're actually a subject, but
They also have symbols of nations too.
that's in principles.
At the, yeah,
Republic,
the first
yeah.
one.
Okay, so let's see if we can now make a list. Let's stick with this one, see
What belongs here?
So certainly all the founding documents. Citizenship rights and responsibilities in the U.S.
But not everyone.
What's there right now?
I think you mean it's right.
Yeah.
If it's there right now, it doesn't mean it's right. But no citizens of other countries have rights and responsibilities.
Not the same as ours, that's the thing. And so here we're talking about.
So these are gonna be the only things that are different than that?
I think in the Principles of the Republic, we would talk specifically about what that looked like here. I don't think, I struggle more with citizen involvement on the government side, because I'm not sure, are we gonna go into every different form of government and the way citizens can be involved in those other forms?
That's
Or do we
where I
just
got
want them
Well,
to
I'll
know?
tell you the distinction I see. Right now in governance, they talk about the different branches of government and ignore that citizens have an out role to play in government.
Right. So we just want them to know that citizens may play a role, and what that role is could be different.
Well, citizens play a role in local government.
Well,
Citizens play a
and
role
in different kinds of
Right,
government.
yes.
That's what I'm.
But
So
are we
that-
talking about different kinds in America or different kinds in the world?
In the world. Kinds is in the world.
But I'm with you, because I got lost when you were citizen involvement over there.
I think we have to be clear on what we somehow mean by that.
I think this is as a governmental system.
Yes.
Citizens do different things.
And why don't you put that up there, governmental systems, which is kind of how it's written, isn't it? Governance systems, right?
Governance.
And then the other one is constitution, it's actually supposed to be constitutional system, but you say US.
Or even civic and political.
How do you spell governance?
Govern, A and C.
Ants.
A-N-C-E?
So that's kind of like the big idea of government. Across time in lots of places. And then this one is really about our government.
Right.
Or our form of government at its broadest.
Right, and I'm still just looking at the citizen involvement and just making sure that we understand that what we're trying to get out of that is that there are different roles that people may play in different government systems, that they don't actually need to know what that looks like in a monarchy, what that may look like in a dictatorship, what that may look like in this, or do we actually want to have them go, and that seems a stretch for elementary school to have them go to.
For fourth and fifth grade, I think it would be interesting for them to know why, because it does lead us to the discussion of why do we have limited government. Because as a citizen under a monarchy, the unlimited government of the monarchy means your citizenship rights and responsibilities are really minimal. Your rights are very minimal. Versus
Your responsibilities
your responsibilities are
Right.
total.
Right, total responsibility, no, yeah,
Exactly right. They're
Well,
all.
they should understand that, so they know why people in China can't do the same things we can do here. Why, they need to know that kind of thing, because
They can't Google that,
the way
right?
they're, yeah. They need to understand, because I know
How are leaders?
we've talked about different things, and the kids are like, well, can't they just do this? No, it's different there, they don't understand that, they don't have rights and freedoms like we have.
An
That's why
understanding,
people want to come here.
an understanding of governmental systems leads us, that's really a fourth grade, it's gonna be fourth grade, because it leads us to why we have what we have, I think.
From here's all the different possibilities, this is what we are using.
Right. And we're using them largely coming You don't
then
have
how
to
do you
talk
not
about
go
every
into-
individual.
Okay.
But I think in terms of ours, you know, if I were thinking citizen involved, to me, I think citizen involvement can honestly be both places. Because what I think is missing is that idea of, that I worry about is that you go through K-12 education, you've learned all about being a citizen, and then you do it after you graduate. And to me, it should be different than that. It should be part of what you do all along. And so to me, it's the layout of, you know, if I'm studying, if I'm in third grade and I'm looking at Missouri, am I researching current issues and what the issues are? And am I looking at them and forming my own opinion based on, well, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. Part of citizenship is making a decision. So do I have opportunities to make a decision? Are there opportunities in my school for me to have input in decision making? Whether it's a field trip that we, you know, I remember the year my daughter, she brought home 6 options and she's like, we're deciding which of, you know, do we go to Jeff City and do this one thing all year, or would we be able to do these 5 and weigh in the pros? You know, we can either do these 5 field trips or we can go to Jeff City. And they let the students vote and choose that, but they weighed what would be, you know, they were deciding what would be pros and cons of that. To me, they need that practice in being informed and making decisions before they graduate. So to me, it's kind of both things. It's in both places, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And I agree with you. I think of this as the theory and this as the application. Is how I'm seeing the two part of each other.
All government.
Right.
I think we gotta be careful. I think in some ways, maybe in our head, what we're thinking is because we're talking about it first, that means it's going to come first. It doesn't necessarily
Well,
have
it may
to.
come in tandem.
No, or, yeah, they may come in
Right.
tandem, or the stuff we're talking about now may not, may be 4th and 5th grade, whereas you may talk about some of this other stuff, kindergarten, first and
Sure.
second. So they're,
Sure.
And like we've done with the scaffolding.
yeah, and that's just, I think it's partly what we're coming into is just the way that we're discussing.
But we're
it,
just
or
trying to
the
think,
way
how do
we're-
we
right.
make sure the pieces are there?
What I'm wondering is if we forget about these 2 things, because I'm looking at some of the other groups and even the C3 frameworks where they just call this civics. And then maybe we
I think
make a
that's what
list
high
of
school
what's
did, they
in
just decided to
civics,
call it government.
and then we can break it out from there. Does that make sense? I don't know if it's trying to do all both of them at the same point in time, but as I'm reading through some of these, what they're doing is they're calling them civics, and then some of it fits one place or the other.
Traditionally, that's the way it was taught, you know, we decided to split out government and just focus on kind of the structure and function of government, which is what we've done in this document. And then citizenship gets pulled out into its own, and then beefed up, or why do we have these certain citizenship things?
My gut is that when the high school, when the secondary group turns theirs in,
They're gonna get,
somebody will parse those out into 2 categories. Because we've got to live within the 7.
yeah.
This is Michigan, they have purposes of government, values and purposes of American democracy, structures and functions of government, roles of the citizen in American democracy, and then some of the discourse, decision making, and citizen involvement. And they have those are kind of the headers across these things and these things.
A lot of the stuff we just wrote down.
But what else fits in the principles?
Well, I know what currently is in there, and it's taught in conjunction with the founding documents, that are, what are the big principles that come out? So it's not just that these documents exist, but what are those principles and how do they play out? And hopefully they're taught in the way that they play out. So things like majority rule, minority rights, limited government.
In there, it actually says
come you would?
Because all governments, any place you have a government, they have summers.
Agreed. But ours are specific to us. I mean, that's where I would argue I can see.
Yeah.
So maybe
It
you
could go
can't
both
vote.
places, right.
Yeah, do we touch on those though? By the way, I thought we did that in.
Very little
Okay.
in history.
Yeah, in history, that's what I was thinking.
Because we said that we would, that they're touched on here. It's nice to be able to see runs of code. Okay, here's history. The only place we really put that is, that seems blurry. With my eyes. Holidays, national holidays, things like that.
I mean, I'm fine with it being principles of the club because I think many of those symbols are representative of certain principles. And it's just another way to embody those principles or to symbolize those principles. So I think it fits well there, especially at the younger ages.
Anything else fit underneath that one?
You have make and enforce laws.
Character ed.
And citizenship.
Civic virtue. What do we talk about applying civic, like this, apply civic virtues when participating in school? It's discussing the different types of virtues. I think
That's
that.
the
That would be the
character ed.
character ed and
That's the character
citizenship.
ed.
Kind of
Citizenship.
Well, I was gonna say, I would have loved to have this to yesterday.
Yeah.
Cause you overlap so much.
Yeah, the character ed is usually
You're teaching them the characteristics of a good citizen.
absolutely so, and that's where that comes from. It comes from the fact that there was lots of character we could teach. Which one is that we could agree on? And for one that supports active citizenship is usually where or the citizenship in the United States or the character
What did you
driven.
call
We
that?
have a lot of civic virtue or
This,
whatever, I don't care.
that's the language, this is the kindergarten one
From where?
from Connecticut.
Okay.
It says apply civic virtues when participating in school settings.
The guy.
And then do the same thing with community. They talk about how are, how do you work together as a community? And that's more likely in first grade. But because I would also, like I said before, I would put in here like the different roles between local, state, federal. So I think some of those things are laid to start with the Constitution, and then determine what's given to states, which is also then determine what types of decisions are made at a local level.
That civic virtue, I think, is coined by a guy named John Patrick, who I knew he's retired from IU, and it had some controversy around it.
The word civic virtue,
The virtue part.
Could be individual responsibility and self-governance.
What did you say?
Behavior should.
Kathy, if that's not, so then.
Response to, individual responsibility and self-governance, that concept.
Should that be here?
That's what I was asking. Where else would you put it?
I'm gonna leave it here,
Yeah.
unless it's here.
How about how people go with the flow? That's good.
Those are the two types of people.
governed, inalienable rights. So those are all things that come out of the documents.
Yeah, but after you get to your documents, you break all that out.
Yeah.
I never would have break it out there.
Yeah, same here.
I think it's already very much. Yeah, maybe up here.
Yeah. So all those things come out. And when we get into legal laws, those are all, that civic thing has a long historical, philosophical tradition that.
That's the language they put in the C3 frameworks, the civic virtues.
Yeah. Saying they've got a long history.
So I'm looking to see what they all list under civics. There are three headings under the C3 stuff are civic and political institutions, participation, deliberation, applying civic virtues and democratic principles, processes, rules, and laws. And I do think that part of the way that they avoid some of that is they say know these things, but then list those questions. So they'll say things like, what types of things does our community consider to be important? Specific honesty, responsibility. Give examples, but they're not necessarily defining it for them.
But that becomes the issue when you say virtue, and that means it has a normal connotation that it values more, that it's better than something else.
Civic
And
qualities.
what Shelley may say is good citizenship and what I may say is good citizenship could be very different.
From what I.
Which is fine. But I think that's perfectly
And that's
fine.
why the
That's part
virtue
of you
part
have the
is
discussion.
problematic. The virtue says it is good.
Only if you lay out the
Some
virtues.
things are not good.
Only if you lay out what
You know,
those virtues are.
Truth would be, truthful, honest.
If we just say
Isn't that-
define and talk about what civic virtues, discuss civic virtues and that your community sees as important, does not say here are the things that your community should see as important. It allows that discussion to take place.
But you can,
I can just see a teacher coming in and trying to interpret that.
and I can see a
And then
parent
coming
coming in
home and telling my
and
kid,
saying,
this is what's important. Then it comes home to me, and then I'm back in their face going, you did not just do this.
when you can easily avoid it by
Oh,
saying
no, you didn't.
Well, you
attitudes.
know what I mean? That's exactly what's playing through my head
Or
now. It's like,
dispositions.
What if some teacher picks that up and uses it?
Oh, they will.
I don't think you can say both and not do I think we're going to say character ed, you're going to end up in that conversation no matter what. So either we're going to have to leave character ed completely out of it, even though schools already do it, and we already have the 8 words, like character ed has used 8 words for years, and other people use these different things. So we're already doing it in some way.
Yeah, except we don't call it virtue education.
Virtue means better. and
Right. I mean, I
That's
think,
the
but
thing.
What's
That's
wrong
it.
with
we're getting into a
distinguishing?
semantic argument.
Because what I will characterize as a civic virtue may be something really different from what you do. So for instance, that whole idea about self-sufficiency, and that's 200 years ago. How does that make you feel? And I'm going to teach that as a virtue.
Well, no, I'm not.
So that's the
No, that
thing.
doesn't
what I'm
bother me if
saying.
you don't call it self-sufficient.
No, but I'm saying as a teacher, if I'm a teacher and I'm teaching your child, and I'm going to say, it is not a civic virtue to be self-sufficient. You should be looking only at all times on what's best for society. Because that's what's virtuous.
Well, it's
Where
still
if I said it
value.
was this disposition or an attitude,
I just think you're making a semantic argument, which is, it doesn't matter what we call it. What my thought is it
principles of
doesn't really
republic
matter.
versus constitutional.
Yeah,
I
did we
think
just
so.
go? Did we start off this road with that to avoid it?
Nah, bring it out.
I think
That was my thought,
All
exactly.
Okay.
I just wanted to try
Do we want to add anything else before we go to lunch?
Yes, I want equality.
Okay.
I know you
No,
Can we go back and
I wrote individual rights.
Okay.
You want it to be,
Equality.
okay, so you want it to be its own
Where-
deal?
Equity
where
or
it's
equality?
made- Well, I think there's a difference between equal
This is my
rights
job.
and equal things. And I think we could probably, well, I think sometimes we avoid equal rights because we don't want people to think they need equal things, and they don't. Equal rights and equal things are different, but equality is certainly principle.
between the two, yes, I'm assuming so. Unless we can just hammer it out in the next 2 or 3 hours and we're done.
So real quick, I'm just gonna read it. Here's the C3, what they put for the civics and political. They have the 3 headings, which are civics and political institutions. Let me just see, here's some of the stuff they have. So they go through, it says, describe roles and responsibilities of people in authority. That's the leadership one, right? We have that.
Yep. On the left-hand side.
Okay. Explain how all people, not just official leaders, play important roles in the community. That might be citizen involvement.
Kind of both. Yep.
Explain the need for and purposes of rules in various settings inside and outside the classroom. This is actually the kind of reading through what they say kids should have by second grade.
Yep. That's in government.
Explain how groups of people make rules to create responsibilities and protect freedoms. Identify the end of the period. Explain how groups of people make rules to create responsibilities. That might be somewhere in there with how laws are made and how some of those things, principles like the majority rule, some of those things. Explain what governments are and some of their functions. Describe how communities work to accomplish common tasks and establish responsibilities and fulfill roles of authority.
Don't really have that.
I think we have symbols, but even on this side, I think we need to have something about the differences between, we do have local, state, and national, so somewhere in there we could probably do some of that.
Yeah.
And vote. Apply civic virtues when participating in school settings.
I hate that word.
Apply some sort of good principle things and democratic principles in school settings. That's what they apply. And then it goes to community settings. Describe democratic principles such as equality, fairness, and respect of legitimate authority and rules. Follow agreed upon rules for discussions while responding attentively to others when addressing ideas and making decisions as a group. Compare their point of view with others' perspectives. This looks to me like it's trying to characterize this as some of the being able to debate. Explain how people can work together to make decisions. Identify and explain how rules function in public. Explain how policies are developed to address public problems, and describe how people have tried to improve their communities over time. That's all. And then that is strand for each of those. That starts at the end of grade 2. All things I just said you would play
So
out.
what's interesting is you didn't mention anything about constitutional documents.
I think that comes later. So I just read through by the end of grade 2. All of that comes later.
Boy, that is a lot of grade 2.
All of what I just read is stuff that would come by the end of grade 2.
Wow, that's stunning. That's a lot from K to 2.
Because then like in the, so for example, one of them is explain the need and, so by K2 it says explain the need for and purposes of rules in various settings inside and outside of school. But then the next one that says by the end of grade 5 they should examine the origin and purposes of rules, laws, and key U.S. constitutional provisions. And it's in the same line. But if you think about it, all that we just said we have, I mean it's they're taking both of these two and putting it in civics.
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Which we would do if we didn't have one.
Right. That's why I actually think we could make a bigger, longer list like this and then separate it out. But
All right, let's eat.
I'm not coming back. I've had enough. Where are we going? Where were you guys talking about was so good?